let's call Rick.
See if they have sound.
We have sound
Any
now?
chance you guys can hear us now?
You know what? I'll text Claude and say, let me know when. Let
Perfect.
me know when you.
We can see you guys. We see the comments, so we're happy you're joining us nonetheless.
Yes. There you go. She said, there you go.
You can hear it?
Can you hear us now?
All right. So does that mean we start over?
Sound is working now. I think we should start
They're
over and do a
on.
little.
Woo!
Well, here's our official welcome to
Man.
Church Unplugged. We thank you guys so much for bearing with us and for your patience tonight. We are so excited to finally be joining y'all for a conversation on personalities and mental health. And as always, once again, we have the incredible Carla Salazar and amazing Tanya Cummings joining us. And they are going to be helping lead our discussion tonight. And we should be having our incredible lead pastor, Mr. Frank McElhaney, joining us momentarily. He's been awesome helping us get the sound figured out. And as always, my name is Jade Ruggarello. I will be your unseen host for this evening. And please feel free to ask questions, leave comments. Thank you guys so much for letting us know that you weren't able to hear, and hopefully you can hear us clear now. So once again, how are you guys doing tonight?
we're giggling because you're announcing pastor, and he's like he's not. He just like walked out.
Okay.
Come back, we love you and need you. Oh my goodness, sorry about that. It has been a fun-filled night, y'all.
It's been eventful, to say the least. Absolutely.
So Rick is out of town, and he's coming into town, and he just texted, should I come to church or come home? I don't know right now. I'm not sure. And so with that, our sound is, he knows the ins and outs of the sound. And so
an expert when it comes to that.
we've had a little bit of technical difficulties, but Pastor's on it. He needs to come back. Come back. Okay, so tell me what's going on, Jade. We're talking about personalities tonight, right?
Yes, we're talking about personalities. We're going to talk a little bit about mental health. And so what we had been discussing before we realized we didn't have sound was we were just kind of given a little bit of a refresher and an overview of what personalities are. So if you want to go ahead and continue with that.
Okay, so I was talking about nature versus nurture. And some people believe that personalities are from like birth, right? And some people believe that it develops over time. And I'm kind of the school of both, right? And when I say personality, I'm talking about how you are and different characteristics of your person, right? What do you think? Well, are you a nature or nurture person?
I agree that it's both.
You think it's a both kind of thing, right?
I mean, I think that you are born with some parts, of course, our God-given personality.
Right.
And I believe that it can shift due to your environment, your family, your circumstances.
Even trauma.
Your
I think
school.
that even trauma can cause, a shift in personality.
You kind of think of it as a mask. Like we have our personality and then we have different masks that we wear depending on what we are walking through, or some people are really good about never picking up a mask and others have like a whole treasure chest of masks. I don't even know if they're treasure chests, a pile of them maybe.
Like the way I am with costumes.
So.
Bring it. Yeah, no, definitely. So, I mean, and then for the 16 personalities, there are 4 different letters that make up your distinct personality. And then I'll let you touch on personalities plus.
And there's 4 when it comes to personalities plus. They have the melancholy, the sanguine, the phlegmatic, and the choleric. So there's 4 different of those, and they're all very similar. They just break down differently. The way they explain things are a little bit different. But
there he is.
And here comes Pastor.
All righty. You doing okay, Pastor Frank? All righty. Well, thank you so much for
It's been pretty hectic
for working back there
We're
for
taking
us.
deep breaths.
Yes.
So what do you have to say about personalities?
I don't always agree with what the personality profile says, but on a very minimal part. Most of the time, if you take one of the personality profile tests, you'll find that they're very indicative of your personality. whether you like to admit it or not. But what I would like to say, before everybody gets real confused and starts trying to figure out what the best one is, there's not a best one.
Right.
This is
Absolutely.
just indicative of your
Absolutely.
personality. None of the personalities is better than the other. In fact, it's been my experience that you need all of those personalities to make, especially a group or a team function. So if you're on a function, if you're on a team that only has one personality set, then you will be on a team that can't see beyond the end of its nose most of the time.
Yes.
That's a
And
good
every
point.
team needs a Carla because you always get to have fun. She always brings the fun.
Absolutely.
It does not
And a
matter.
Tanya, because you know, like, what's going on with relationships and knowing the
knows that.
dynamics. No, I love it and appreciate it. And definitely a pastor, because he's going to tell you what's going on.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
Sure, for sure. Sister
My
Gail did
personality.
comment. It says we have low volume on Tanya and pastors. So
I think it's just because I'm real loud, Sister Gail.
thank you so much
We'll try our
Thank
best.
you.
for letting us
Trust
know.
me,
It
we're
may
not
be.
trust me, if you can understand this, let us know, because
Yes, thank you
Yeah,
so much
keep
for,
us
for
posted.
commenting.
Keep us posted.
this has been quite an ordeal.
Rick
And-
says
and
he's on the
pray-
way.
And pray for Brother Rick, because we need Brother Rick. He needs to be blessed.
He is amazing at everything he does.
I want to
But
echo
I
that.
said pray.
I think this is going to be a comedy show.
Tonight, yes.
This is how
It
we're
might be.
handling
It
our.
might be.
This is how
But
we're.
we're
handling-
we're rolling with it. We're gonna
Okay.
we're gonna make it. So, and Pastor, I love that you were talking about how it takes so many different personalities to work or to make something work. And I think that's interesting, especially because tonight, you know, we're kind of relating them to mental health in a way, and just talking about the relationship between the two. And so I actually wanted to mention, as I was doing a little bit of research on this earlier today, the Personalities Plus website actually said that, I'm going to quote it, I'm going to read it so I don't get it wrong. But they said that various personality types use different tools and methods to cope with mental health issues that are
Yeah.
unique to that personality. So would you guys just mind elaborating on that, maybe some of the strengths and weaknesses of the personalities, what they are, and just kind of how they can affect mental health?
Well, I think that when you're talking about coping skills, I do think that that sensors are going to gravitate towards, and I'm talking about 16 personalities. So like that's how sensors and intuitives are how you gather information, right? And I think that sensors are going to be more likely to do things, sense out things as a coping mechanism, where intuitives are going to go into their own world as a coping mechanism because they are more imaginative, they are more, you know, and it's like, I know for me in particular, I'm going to look for experiences. Like that's how sensors gather information. I just can't look for the wrong types of experiences, right? And so, and then I think that like intuitives kind of go in their own world and they can't go too far into their own world because that won't be a good thing either. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Well, you can get lost.
Yeah.
I'm intuitive, so I know that it becomes, rather than a coping mechanism, it becomes an escape.
Right.
So a coping mechanism is meant to be used for a period of time, not to be an escape from, because it can be really, and understand that among the different personality types, you're talking about sensing things to cope, and I'm the way where I need some space so I can figure out what's going on, and then that's really one of my a real coping skill that I
Yes.
use is once I feel so pressed and is that I retreat and not really withdraw, but retreat and find that space to where really I can go anywhere in the world in my own self, you know.
See,
I'm not
and
kidding.
I'm not
See,
like that. That's
I-
interesting. How are you?
I'm probably not as, I'm in between, but more towards not like that. As Ashlyn can go anywhere in the world in her
Yes.
mind very, very easily.
That's so fascinating to me. Like it is, because I'm not that way. I'm very much in the moment. Like, I mean, that's why running is such a good coping tool for me because I'm pressed in that moment. But I can get myself into lots of trouble, though, because I am sensing out experiences, and I'm looking for something to satisfy that, and that's not always a healthy thing. I'm so grateful for Jesus, because me sensing out all these experiences and looking for experiences to help me cope with things really got me into trouble. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was not a good thing for me. So I needed some Jesus in my life, so that and I'm a person, like, when I get lost in worship, it is I have to remember the relationship and not get lost in the experience. Does that make sense?
And I'm the opposite, that I can miss the experience because I'm lost in the relationship. And that's the emotions of things opposed to the experience of things.
Got it.
And then I have very few close relationships, so I view relationships more from the outside than from the inside.
Inside.
So I'm always thinking about what the other person is feeling, what they're...
Because you're a feeler.
Yeah, and so I kind of look at it from the outside. But you just talk about like mental health, and I have a couple of, when I was a child, would have been called disabilities. I lean toward dyslexia a little bit, but over the years I've just kind of, but I had a friend that was dyslexic, couldn't read. He actually says they just put him through school so they could get the money for him being there. And he was dyslexic, but in his mind, he could see, like, he had a muffler shop, and in his mind he could visualize, like, everybody, you have these books that have such a degree of bends and stuff like that. Well, he would just go look at the car, and he would go back to the deal, and he would make it.
That's so cool.
And it was just like, so what I'm trying to say is sometimes those things that seem to be, might be a disability, actually become a strength when they're paired with your personality.
Yes, I agree.
So that's I still have that too. Like, when I see a building, I don't see just the blueprint, the flat print. I see the building. I can take it and turn it and look at it. So
that's so cool.
And I didn't even know that other people couldn't do that until I started talking to a lady, and I was trying to tell her how this was going to look like. And she said, it's just a drawing on a piece of paper, you know. But my point is, sometimes those perceived disabilities, when paired with your personality type, can become a hidden strength that you really didn't, and more valuable than. So I don't know what to do with the ADD part, but
Absolutely. And Sister Girl, I just want to let you know, we do see your comment. So she said that she still can't hear Tanya, our pastor. I don't know.
We're working on that.
We're working on, yes. Thank you so much for keeping us updated. We're definitely.
I can hear.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm trying.
All righty. Well, we're praying that it'll become clearer. But absolutely, I think that that's so important. And kind of, going off of that, I wanted to touch on why, it's so important to, and this is kind of even something we talked about in our last discussion, is understanding the personalities of the people around you, especially when it comes to mental health, because then you can kind of have a guideline or a blueprint to kind of help them. So would you guys mind elaborating just a little bit on the importance of that, and just kind of understanding what your loved one may be feeling?
I think relationships are such a strength for you. I'm curious what you have to say.
I just find that it's super important to be tuned in to the people that are around you. I unfortunately have the problem of being too consumed by it or tuned in.
No way.
I can't let go sometimes of, if I can be feeling fine, but if I check the atmosphere of the people that are around me, my mind goes to like, oh, I think that there might be something going on with them, and so then I can become distracted in that. But it is so important to know why people do the way they do, do the way they do, do what they do.
I love it.
It's important to understand the hearts of those around you, and personalities make a difference. Scott and I are very different in a lot of ways, and he is an introvert. I am an extrovert. He needs time to wind down I can take winding down.
Hi,
but,
handsome.
Yay!
I
Brother
love
Rex
it.
here. But I also like to be around people, and I like to talk about things right then and there, not sit there. And Scott needs the time
I do too.
to process
I need to talk about it
them,
right then.
and,
That's interesting.
no.
Rick's the same. Rick's like,
So,
don't talk to me.
Yes. And things like that make a difference, because then you understand why whenever you're just like so talkative, someone else is like not wanting to go there, or there are reasons why some people are super organized and other people aren't, and you walk into the room. I always think about even more so. But I mean, the entire room could be like the kids being like, laughing, talking, all this noise going on, and she's just like having a conversation with you as an adult, like, and everything is fine. She's got everything under control. She's rocking it. This is Carla. Got under control. I mean, everything. But everyone's getting to be themselves in that moment. I walk into that, and I have pieces of both. Like, I love to be able to be like, hey, I'm getting to know everybody. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, okay, wait, look, all right, you don't talk, your teacher's talking, you know. and Carla's not like that, and her teacher wasn't like that. It was just a controlled chaos, I guess you could say. But it wasn't even chaos. It's amazing. But different personalities function differently with things like that.
Well, and I know she loves me regardless, so I can live like that, and I know Tanya can come into the room, and it's not, and this is the mental health piece, guys, right? And I know she loves me regardless. But I know there are certain personalities that are secretly judging me. You know what I'm saying? And so then I'm like, okay, y'all come, like, and especially, and not even for my evaluations or anything, like as far as a teacher, not like when somebody goes back into children's church, not things that I'm like, oh, hi. Not stuff like that. I'm talking about like another teacher who has a completely different personality than mine, right? Coming into the room and me knowing how I've heard them talk about other, people. And so then I'm like, ooh, they must think that I'm, a hot mess express, right? When really these kids are learning. Like, I wouldn't let them do that if they weren't learning. Like, I wouldn't, like, we're not just partying it up in fourth grade, right? But with those, I struggle mental health wise with, do people take me seriously, right? Like, and so then that is something that's so loud. And y'all, my ADHD has kicked in big time today. I needed more coffee, I think. So just sorry, y'all. It's because I can feel it with I'm very distracted. But just know that every personality has their own set of, I don't want to say weaknesses, but points of where you start playing in your head things that maybe aren't, I don't want to say aren't real, but aren't necessarily what people might be thinking of you, and that is a not a good brain cycle. And
I don't even think about that. I don't care what anybody thinks. That would never enter my, if I was in that situation, I would never think of that.
I also think that might be a difference between men and women too.
that's a good point.
And that's a good thing to talk about, a difference in the personality types between men and women.
Like, you can be the same personality type, but men versus women are it's
Still
different.
slightly different, so it's still, it shows up in a different way.
Well, Claudia and Scott test the same personality. And I don't think that they're there are some similar. I think that they have a funny sense of humor.
I actually started, before we knew that they were the same personality, before we had tested them, they just click. It's really funny. She gets Scott's joking humor in a different way, and the dryness, whereas me, I'm like, oh, Scott, did you say that you were joking? He's like, no, I don't need to say that I'm joking. I'm like, yes, you do. Let them know you're joking. But Claudia just got it, and she didn't play into she just went whatever, it was so perfect. So that's where I could see the similarity. I wouldn't have thought that before, but I mean, definitely.
But but there's a lot of, I learned something in all the years that I've been alive, and I've actually dealt with this personality profile thing for many years. I had to go through it at work a couple of times. I had to go through it in the ministry. I had to go through it. So, but one of the things we need to realize is that again, one of them's not better than the other.
Right.
And whenever you, and this is something that pays for everybody to remember, there was a strong set of teaching to work on your weaknesses. Yeah. But the fact is, you waste more time working on your weaknesses and have less payback than you do if you play to your strengths.
Ew, that's powerful.
So you need to realize you play to your strengths, and they will begin to override what you may perceive as your weaknesses, because you begin to notice beyond that, because you build on your strengths. And so I would tell anybody that is, if you have things that you are working on, those things that you do well, just do them better. And they'll begin to override that stuff that maybe people point out. And sometimes you're talking about somebody points something out. Just because somebody else perceives it as weakness, it does not necessarily mean that that's a
100%.
weakness. Because if somebody said, you shouldn't be doing that on some things, I've actually told people, you just need to get a grip. This is life.
Yes, no,
and you can't. And I think that's one of the things in life today that a lot of young people just have no concept of what dealing with people really is.
Yeah.
Because they've always dealt with people on their terms.
Yeah.
And your personality profile is, if you have everything on your terms, it's really not going to show up like it does when you start having to deal with people in stress situations and one-on-one really deeper things. And so those things begin to show up, then that's when your personality begins to show up,
That's a good point.
So.
And that is so how you even do your day-to-day life and everything, that you always try to stick to the strengths and not the weaknesses.
Yes.
Even in her
Ashlyn just said
classroom,
that was something Ashlyn
completely
just said too.
that way. She literally was about praising the student over the things they did wrong, and had such favor with the students that others kind of would struggle with when all they were doing was hyper focusing on what they've done wrong.
On weakness.
So, yeah.
No, and I think Ash has the same, she does the same thing in her
She
classroom
does,
with
yeah.
kids. And she said that, she said, not about me, about, that's exactly why we play to students' strengths.
Yeah.
In school, I would get, when I went to school, in school I would get good grades in some subjects and then not so good grades in other subjects. So everybody wanted me to work on that subject that I wasn't doing well in. And I understand the thinking, but if I would have worked more on some of the stuff that I was doing very well in, it would have overrode some of that other stuff.
That's a good point.
Because it's necessary. You find out that some of the things that you do, you have to learn. It's necessary for you to learn things in school. Like I didn't see any need for algebra. I thought, man, that only does, and stuff like that. History, and I don't care who was king in 1400. But once I became a minister, I love history. I want to know.
Yes,
I said,
there's an application.
I read it. There was a book. My teacher had that book, but I didn't read it, so I don't know what it is.
I love it.
So all of those things play into who you become. So I'd like to ask a question. Do circumstances change your personality?
I personally, I know I've read different theories, and especially, on this, right? Nature versus nurture. And it's hard to, there's evidence that yes, and then there's evidence that no. I don't know if I personally think it does. I think it does. Either it causes your personality, it's like making a diamond, right? So it puts pressure on your personality and it may come out and shine more, or it put pressure on your personality and it'd be causing wear on your personality and say it? Yes, and it might dull it, yes. And I think that that comes with mental health as well. Like, and so I think things change, right? So I'm kind of like I do believe in the nature part of personality. I think that people are born with, like, you know, some of what they are going to be. Like, and it's even been true, like, you watch babies and there are more serious babies, i.e. my Claudia Elise, you know, and then there's more babies that are like, you know, and then there's kiddos like Ash where, like, she's like jumps all in, right?
Well, and when you read that one book,
there's a nature
excerpt
versus
about
nurture, and it's
Ashland, I
personalities
just
plus
was blown
not personalities plus 60
away.
personalities.
Like, I was blown away by that, and to me that just solidifies that yes, you
grow
and
into it.
Different circumstances, but you can cause to lean a certain way, but that was powerful to me.
Well, and it was neat because it really did touch on, for her personality in particular, but then I started looking at, you know, I've looked at all of, like, it's called nature to nurture, right? And so you look at all the different personalities, and for hers in particular, it did show that there is a point where they kind of go, not introvert, but like they get lost in their own world, right? Because they're an intuitive, even though they're an extrovert by nature, and finding themselves in that process. And so it's interesting to see that. I kind of am a school of thought for both, though. I don't know. I still haven't figured it out.
I definitely know that circumstances have changed my personality, and a lot of times as a mom, you will go through raising your kids and become an empty nester, and you will notice and stop and go, wait a second, the person that I was growing up is not who I am today. And not just because you've matured, you've had experiences, but even like different things you've had to face cause you to either pull back or push in, or have more grit, or maybe even go walk through depression. There's so many things that you go through. And I did have an experience whenever I was younger that ended up kind of coming back around whenever Ashlyn was like 3 months. And some of the words and the things that were said and the experience in itself did change me slowly over time, because I began to replay the things that were said or replay the experience that caused me to not be able to, but kind of caused me to pull back whenever I would normally walk in a room and with confidence. I have seen that I don't do that near as much as what I would have, like when I was growing up. And so I do think that
you used to rule the roost.
But my personality has changed in that. And then too, raising the kids, I really did. Once my girls were have graduated high school and stuff, I mean, there are several parts of me that I stopped and was like, wait a second, who am I? Like, what things, you know, make me smile? What things
happy.
make me sad? All those different things. So I just kind of both.
Well, and I think it's important to be okay in where you're at in the moment. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if it's in a place of exploration, if it's in a place of or finding out what you're happy about and what you're not happy about, it's okay. I think sometimes people get down on themselves because they're not sure, or they are not necessarily, they don't feel like they know, like there's a solid answer. And I feel like mental health wise, it's okay to kind of try to be figuring things out, you know?
Absolutely. And I love that you said, you know, it's okay to be that, because I was going to refer to something that you guys talked about in the last episode, or the last time we talked about this, and that was, you know, meeting people where they're at. And I think that's so important, especially with mental health, because it is vital that you meet people where they're at in their mental health journey, or even just whatever season they're walking through. And I've noticed a common theme. I've noticed a common theme through just this conversation tonight, whether it's with motherhood or whether it's with students or just relationships, and that's just people, you know, interacting with people. And I think that's something that's so unique about this past year that we've all experienced, is we've had to physically isolate from people, and we've physically not been allowed to be with people. And that's where unfortunately, we've seen a lot of people either be diagnosed or experience mental health issues in this last year due to that. So I just kind of wanted to
maybe
Yes.
bring everything full circle, kind of, wrap it up and just say, if someone who maybe still is currently in that place, and I mean, COVID it's still around, and it's still happening.
Yeah.
Just what advice would you have, or just some words to encourage people during that time?
Let me say this. Around you, there's someone you can reach out to.
Yeah.
And you need to, if you find yourself in a position that you're becoming depressed or just down all the time or stressed out, reach out to somebody. And when you reach out to somebody, you can do it on you can do it on the phone, you can do it by text, you can do it. I have people that, they're not people that I get to see, but I just text them every once in a while, see how you're doing.
Yeah.
A couple of people I call them, and they don't go to this church or anything like that. They're just people that I know that just because of all that's happened they've just literally, they've lost their jobs, some have lost their homes, some have lost.
Yeah.
It's many have lost loved ones. It's just been a rough time. And so I want to say, from my part of it, reach out to somebody.
And
For y'all's part, y'all got to talk.
Well, just to reach out to others, check on them, dealing with personalities and mental health, or just even during this time, considering that, you might have to extra pull out of somebody that's an introvert, because it's just natural for them to be withdrawn. And so to really push forward and take note, like if somebody is really an extroverted person and they start, not really being as interested in things that they normally would, or being around people, just to take note of the things that are going on around us. And when you're saying hi to someone, and I have to be reminded of this all the time, the Lord will stop me and say, Tanya, just say hi and how are you, and not waiting for a response is just mere words. You want to know how that person really is doing. So stop and be like, hi, how are you? And try to have a conversation, even if it's two, one sentence back and forth from each other.
Yeah.
But to really take note, how is someone doing? Not just saying it because you're saying, oh, well, I acknowledged you. Acknowledge the person. But I have done that because I want everybody to be acknowledged. But sometimes we really need to just stop and see how someone's doing. And you will find that if you take that extra moment, that the people around you are not necessarily doing as good as you think they would if you just passed by them and said, hey, how are you? I'm good.
Well, I called a friend of mine several months ago, and I said, how are you doing? He said, I'm doing fine. And I said, your words say you're doing fine, but your voice says that's not true.
And at that point, I would be crying.
He said, and he nearly broke down, and he said, that's because it's not. And then he told me what was going on. So it was just like you said, I could have just accepted that, not engaged in that conversation.
Well, and I think that the Spirit of the Lord and that spirit of discernment and being prayerful and being a prayerful person, God does give you the opportunity to, even when someone's like, I'm fine, everything's fine, and they're not fine, right? And so then you can engage more, and if they pull back, right, okay, but then you're praying, right? And at some point, that you get the opportunity to say again, hey, how's it going? And then whether they spill their guts to you or they spill their guts to someone else, they know another person cares about them to continue to press past their, I'm fine, everything's fine, because I am a person, personally, that's, I'm fine, everything's fine, my voice gets, I'm good. And a lot of it for me is because I'm such a crier. And if I press forward anymore and I'm around people, I'm just going to lose I'm going to be like, right? Because I'm just a crier. And so I may not want to, engage right at that time, but then later on, when I have the opportunity to just be me and that other person, then I'm willing to talk more or whatever it might be. Or that person just may need a little bit of extra prompting because they do, so I think, yes. And listening to God's Spirit, if you text once, you don't get a reply back, but you really feel in your heart you need to text again, text again.
Do it.
Do it. Because there are parts of people's personality that do make them, you know, feel like they don't want to necessarily say anything. But I know if God is prompting someone to touch base with me again, I trust God.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so then I'm going to say, all right, you know, like.
I like that.
You know,
I trust
like,
God.
Yeah.
you know, like that person's obviously, the Lord is obviously continuing to nudge that person to check on me. So I need to fess up because, you know, and deal with myself. So I don't know.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's so important. And I just wanted to ask, is there any final thoughts you guys had? Anything you wanted to say before we close out this evening?
I'm always going to say you are here for a purpose, for such a time as this, and you are made with the personality that you're made for, with, not made for, with, and for, I mean, the Lord made you perfect, and so just keep on keeping on, because Pastor's right, no personality is any better than the other. So it's
You are
okay.
needed, an
Yeah.
essential
Needed.
part.
That's the
Essential
thing. That's
part.
that's a cool part right there. Everybody, I found out everybody over time is needed, because you got to have the guy that will ask the question.
Yes.
Whether you know, whatever it is, you got to have the person that'll ask the question. You got to have the person that'll give an answer right off the top of their head. Then you got to have somebody that sits there and thinks this through while the other two are talking. Then you got to have somebody. You know, we all work together, and I learned a long time ago not to get everybody that was just like me together to do anything. It's important to have diversity to be able to accomplish more than you can do yourself.
And we have a perfect example of it tonight, just right. I mean, every part of Church Unplugged, there's a piece of it that someone does and brings to the table. And yes, do we know how to work different parts of the sound and the lights and all that stuff? Yes. But literally, Rick is such an integral part. Like, it's amazing to me the things that he does on Sunday mornings, Wednesday nights. But just as, you know, we sitting up here, the lights wouldn't be on, the sound wouldn't be going. We got it, but we didn't get it. You know,
Everything
it's
updated.
Just,
We're like,
it just shows. It was like God saying, "All right, I'm going to show y'all here, like every
and he says
single
like
part."
I mean, you wouldn't think that. I think people think different things about their own, you know, selves, but you are needed, dude.
Yes.
Majorly.
Amen.
And I also want to encourage people with their kids
Yes.
with different personalities. Like, it's okay for your kids to be quiet, and it's okay for them to not be huggers. It's okay for them to be huggers. It's okay for them to be in your face. It's okay for them to have to express their feelings, and it's okay for them to need a minute. I think sometimes as parents, we want our kids to look a certain way so that we can appease other people. And unfortunately, they're the ones that get, they start rethinking about who they are,
Yeah.
right? And so it's okay for them to be who they are. And if you have to go behind and smooth things over, whatever. But like, it was funny because that was even my conversation with my mom today. Rick was out of town for work, and I am a major like, oh, social, come talk. And she comes and brings my kiddos food and was helping me with an errand for Claudia. And she's asking my kids if they want to eat with her in the backyard, because my mom's super social. And like, Caleb's in his own world with school, and Eden's in her own world with school, and Claudia's so sweet. She's like, I will do whatever. And so then I'm freaking out, going, y'all, like, be accommodating, like, because I'm accommodating.
Yes.
I'm social, right? Like, and I want to go and sit in the backyard and eat with mom. So I call my mom, and she's like, I know your kids, Carla. It's okay.
Oh,
You know
I
what
like
I'm saying?
that. Yes.
Like, and I
Yes.
appreciated her, like, saying, I know that they love her. Caleb's been texting her about the weather almost every single day. Like, they love their glowy, but they all love her in their own way.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying? And so I just want to encourage, like, as I go into the school, and I do the 16 personalities with 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, and it's interesting because I thought they'd all test to be the personalities that everybody would want to be. No, they're very honest. And you know what I find is that they feel super satisfied with knowing and understanding that it's okay
To be
who they are. Yes. So I just want to encourage you guys as parents, keep letting your kiddos be who they are. It's good for their mental health. Just
And the
saying.
people surrounding the parents and children, let them be who they are.
Ooh,
Amen.
So, you know what
Amen.
I mean? It's
Yeah.
just, you've
Everyone.
either been there and done that, or you haven't been there yet, so don't, don't jinx it before you get there, because it is not easier than what it looks,
Oh,
for
no.
sure. And that's why you are the
Absolutely.
greatest children's
Oh,
pastor
You're
ever.
sweet. No,
So, for
that's-
sure.
That's Jesus.
You all are amazing. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight and just sticking with us and bearing with us through all of these difficulties. We want to thank everyone who tuned in. We hope that you have been blessed. We pray that you guys are continuing to have a blessed week. Always remember to like us over on Facebook and follow us over on Instagram. Those are two great platforms to stay connected with us. And we hope that you can join us next Wednesday, which I believe is March 31st, for our next episode, which will be at 7 p.m. Once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we pray that you all have a very blessed week. Good night, everyone.
Bye.